Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Unfound Now, where I, Ed Densel, take a look at a recent disappearance. And what I mean by recent, for this series that's been going on for over 5 years now, within the past couple of months. So, for this episode, being recorded on August 31st of 2025, I went back to the beginning of July, so 2 months ago, looking at disappearances, and I chose this one for today. Ruben Carranza, who went missing from Greensburg, PA, back near the end of July, so about a month or a little over a month ago. That is what I do on this particular series here on YouTube, looking at recent disappearances. Now, regarding Ruben, he's from Greensburg, but there seems to be a discrepancy in his age. Why that is, I don't know. In some news articles, it says that he was 31 years old. However, and I will get to this later, in him making news last year in 2024, his age was listed as 35, which means he would be 36 this year. So I'm not sure what to think about that. But once again, I'm going to take a look at the disappearance of Ruben. He went missing from Greensburg, Pennsylvania. I know this area of Pennsylvania very well. And in fact, I was born at the hospital in Greensburg on August 1st, 1970. Been all over this area of Westmoreland County, and my biological family is kind of near this area, growing up in Irwin, which really isn't that far away. So I have a good feeling for the area, the culture, and that may be a factor in my analysis once we get to that toward the end of this recording. As you are listening, I hope you will, and or watching, I hope you will give this video a thumbs up. If you are a new subscriber to this channel, please subscribe and consider hitting the join button below. That's one way that you can support what we do here at Unfound. With each one of these Unfound Now episodes, I always come to this microphone with 3 learning points, and the 3 for today are, number 1, still a mystery. Number 2, background check. And number 3, no reward. I will get into those 3 topics in much greater detail after I go over the specifics. There aren't many, unfortunately, regarding Ruben's disappearance, and I'm going to do that right now. There really hasn't been a lot written or said, whether on video or just in writing, any particular news sites local to Greensburg, Pennsylvania. You should know Greensburg is not that far away from Pittsburgh, but not a lot of information out there. So when it comes to my analysis, there's going to be at least a little bit of guessing. So what I did was I put together 2 of what I have found to be the 2 best reports on Ruben's disappearance, each having a little bit of unique information, and put it into what I'm going to read right now. Ruben's family tells Pittsburgh's Action News 4 that this update brings them one step closer to finding him, even as a different reality outcome begin to set in. Ruben's mother says that she's sick in her stomach, like something bad probably happened. You already feel that way, and then when they tell you that, you already know in your gut, but when somebody says something like that, it's not looking good, you know. And what she is responding to is that this is an article that was written not long after Ruben's car was found, and of course I'm going to talk about that. It was in the early hours of July 29th when Ruben was reported missing, not actually when he went missing, but when he was reported missing. That was also the last time his cell phone was pinged. After days with no developments, Greensburg police announced on Sunday that a concerned citizen discovered the car Ruben was last known to be in hidden off Ridge Road in Acme. Acme is southeast of Greensburg. I've probably been there, although I don't specifically remember it. It's just a little town. I don't even think it has a post office. But it's about a half hour away, not really that far away from Greensburg. Police also report that evidence showed the vehicle wasn't always at that location, and I could not find a specific location like an address on Ridge Road. I took a look at Ridge Road, but it's a long road, and the car could have been anywhere in there, so that's why there's no map video for this particular Unfound Now. The car, based off of the investigation, was actually put onto that property. Time frame is somewhere around August 4th or 5th. So he's reported missing on July 29th. Car was found after the 4th or 5th, but they're saying the best guess, 4th or 5th, is when it was put there. Again, nothing is 100%, but that's preliminary. We're surmising on that, which tells us that the vehicle would have had to have been somewhere else prior to it ending up on the private property. Police also noted that August 5th was the same day Ruben's case appeared on the news and social media, saying the timing is no coincidence. I don't know. It could be. No. It's now 2 weeks since Ruben has been missing and is starting to grow more concerning for his well-being. The longer this keeps going to where we're unable to locate Ruben, Detective Sergeant Scalzo and Ruben's family are asking the area of Acme to come forward with any information to help in the investigation. Look on your cameras on the 4th and the 5th and see if you see anything. I just want my son to home so I can touch him, said Rose's mother. On August 18th, officials said Carranza's family is offering a $1,500 reward for any verified, credible information that will lead officials to Ruben's location. The following day, officials said a concerned citizen had pledged an additional $1,500 to the reward, bringing the total to $3,000 for information leading to Ruben's whereabouts. You can submit tips to the Greensburg Police Department by calling 724-834-3800. Tips can be submitted anonymously. Now, here's the other part of an article. According to police, the timing of the vehicle being hidden was no coincidence and that someone in the Acme area knows something. So far, evidence shows the car was first taken somewhere else on July 29th. Before it was moved to Ridge Road, Carranza's cell phone last pinged in the Mount Pleasant area. Authorities say they searched there, Mammoth Park, Lynn Run State Park, and Beam Rocks, all places Ruben visited often. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. If you know anything or spot Carranza, you're being asked to call Greensburg Police. So before I go into the learning points for this particular episode, once again, I want to remind all of you, please give this a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel. Maybe you want to check out the newly redesigned website, theunfoundpodcast.com. You can support Unfound by going to patreon.com/unfoundpodcast or paypal.me/unfoundpodcast, or right here on YouTube, hit the join button below. All right, those learning points. Number one, still a mystery. Many of you know I've been reporting on disappearances for almost 9 years now. Coincidentally, we have the 9th anniversary of the podcast Unfound coming up this coming Friday, September 5th. Over that time, I've featured over 370 disappearances. And at least a few of those, I did not count how many for purposes of this recording, but many have involved abandoned vehicles, but to much lesser extent, some have featured people going missing with their vehicles and the car being missing as well. Much more common is somebody going missing and that person's car being found somewhere other than where it's usually parked, like at home or something like that. It's out in a logging road. It's in the parking lot of a Walmart, things like that. Not uncommon. The problem is that, at least this far into my disappearance work of 9 years, it's still very difficult to say whether the many vehicles are put there by the missing person or the car was put there by somebody who caused the disappearance. It's still very, very difficult to tell. Now, certainly there have been some where there was evidence left behind pushing me as an analyst one direction or the other. Most of the time, the information's right there in the middle, and it's really, really hard to say. Now, why? Of course, we know why this is important. If we believe that the car was left by the missing person, then the odds of it being foul play, very, very low. Whereas if the car was put there by somebody else, then the odds of foul play, somebody getting away with murder or trying to do that, is very, very high. I mean, it's a really, really stark difference. It's just right down there. There's not probably much else that can point you in one direction or the other if you can figure out who put that car where it was found. Like I said, we've had many like this, and I just picked out 4 of them. And this just shows you how difficult this can be. Now, Eric Alvarado, I personally believe that he put his car where it was found near Texarkana, Arkansas. Many people believe he did not put it there. Greg Brooks, a disappearance from on the east side of Orlando. His car, though, ended up over here in the Tampa area. No idea. Just really, if you were to look at his disappearance, really hard to tell one way or the other. Did Greg drive over here and abandon his car? Or did somebody do something to Greg and abandon his car over here in the Tampa area? Impossible to tell. There's no logical way to get to either conclusion. It's still very up in the air. And Greg's disappearance, over 25 years old now. Rebecca Henderson, another one where there are many people who believe that somebody else left her car on that logging road, and then there are many people who believe that she did that. And as I remember it, all of the stuff that was usually inside the car was outside the car. I think there was even like a laptop or something that she had was found on the ground outside the vehicle in a very, very remote spot. I'm guessing even more remote than where Ruben's car was found. And then much more recently, at least in Unfound's coverage, we had the Pennsylvania disappearance of Joey Offit, coincidentally in Pennsylvania. And her vehicle was found in the parking lot of an apartment complex where she used to live. I'm thinking most people think that she did not leave her car there. I don't know what to think. Can't really be sure one way or the other. It should be known, though, that her house got burned to the ground in the process of this disappearance, which might lead us to believe that somebody else put her car there. But there are certainly no facts one way or the other to point us in a direction. Nowhere to go. So when we look at Ruben's car, there's no logical way, whether it was cruising around and then it was put there over a course of some days. But it does happen. People do get murdered and somebody else drives their car around. In fact, we have the disappearance of Zoe Campos where that happened, where Carlos Rodriguez killed her and he was just driving her car around town as if it never happened. So this can happen. But I don't know if we can draw any conclusions from that. Now, you may be saying, well, it did say in the one article that the car was hidden. Hidden, that's only our perception. We don't know if whoever put it there was intending to hide, quote unquote, hide the car or not. Because here's what I know. If they really wanted to hide the car, they could have just pushed it into many of the lakes and ponds and rivers that exist in western Pennsylvania. I'm from there. There are many. So just keep that in mind. Do not let that, what would that be, an adjective? Do not let that adjective mislead you to think, oh, it's hidden. Well, then it must be somebody else did it. Hidden is relative. So it's still a mystery. I would not jump to any conclusions regarding this car. Is it Ruben's car? Is it his mother's car? I'm guessing it wasn't a stolen car. I don't know. But it was the car he was last driving when he went missing. Nothing can be drawn necessarily from where it was. Then there may have been evidence in it that could point us one direction or the other regarding, if we're going to do analysis on this. But there's no information that's public regarding that, so it's hard to analyze what we don't know. So it's still a mystery. Don't jump to any conclusions on cars being left places. All right, let's go on to learning point number 2. Learning point number 2 is background check. Sometimes you just get a feel for this stuff, and I have to keep track of these things, but sometimes when I do these Unfound Nows, I do go to some of the databases that I use, that I pay for, to check and see what that person was doing with his or her life before he or she went missing. I've surely not done it for every one of these Unfound Now episodes, but there was something about this particular disappearance regarding Ruben that I thought, you know what? What was he doing with his life? He's into his 30s, whatever his age was, 31, 35, 36, whatever it was. What was he doing with his life? And I have to admit that what I found wasn't really that surprising. It's not that I have some spidey sense or anything like that. Absolutely not. But you do enough disappearances and you start getting a feel for this stuff. That's the only way I could put it. And I was not surprised by what I found. Ruben has an extensive criminal record. On that record, burglary, drug possession, forgery, eluding/fleeing an officer, breaking in. And in fact, even just a year before his disappearance in July of 2024, he had gotten caught breaking into some little old lady's house somewhere. And I think that was the breaking in charge. So, like I said, I wasn't surprised by this. So, I don't care. As many of you know, I will cover the disappearance of anybody. I covered the disappearance of Richard Riesenberg, a murderer. I covered the disappearance of Donnie Smatlack, drug dealer. Coincidentally, also from the Greensburg area. Who knew? Who would have thunk it? Jeff Joseph, weed grower before weed was legal in California, but also had an illegal growing operation that would still be illegal today in Northern California. He went missing along with his vehicle. Once again, I don't care. I do this, I go and check people's backgrounds, though, because disappearances are about people, not circumstances. You get to know the person, read about that person, criminal records, relationships, money situations, education, on and on and on, mental health issues, whatever. You're going to be able to make a pretty good prediction on why that person went missing before you ever know what the circumstances are. I see this over and over again. So when I read about Ruben, he's taking a lot of chances. Probably hanging out with the wrong crowd. Probably hanging around probably a bunch of other people, probably mostly men, who are also doing burglaries and selling drugs, drug possession, and forgery. Probably doing a lot of the same crimes that he has done. All shady, all looking to evade the law, probably at any cost. In contrast to if Ruben was a fine, upstanding citizen, never even had a speeding ticket. And he was married for, let's say, 10 years. And wife had nothing but great things to say about him. And he was a great father and all of these other things. And then his car is found, let's just call it not hidden, but abandoned in Acme, Pennsylvania. Certainly that then is something else. Then we have to be thinking, well, was he suffering from, was Ruben, the good guy Ruben, suffering from mental health issues, something like that? Had he ever talked to his wife or other people maybe about suicide? Whereas I look at this real-life Ruben Carranza, and he does not sound like a guy with mental health issues. He doesn't sound like a guy who would commit suicide. So the odds of him parking his car there and walking off into the woods to kill himself, pretty not very probable. Whereas good Ruben on an alternate timeline, dotting his I's, crossing his T's in his life, that then it's much more likely that happened for whatever reason. Mental health, we know a lot of people struggle with that. This will be a good example of the difference of two disappearances that I've featured recently, Tiffany Reed and Anthony Reyes. Tiffany Reed, 16 years old, walking to school, disappeared. Left her house, never made it to school. Walk to school was maybe a little over a quarter of a mile. Went missing, still missing many years later. That would be in contrast to Anthony Reyes. Tiffany Reed, no health issues, mental health issues, no drug issues, nothing. Whereas Anthony Reyes, big time mental health issues. And multiple times had walked off. His mother had to go get him and bring him home. He was obviously struggling with a lot of things. Both Tiffany and Anthony walked away from their houses and didn't come back. But certainly these two as people, vastly different. Thus, you have to look at their disappearances in totally different ways. Same way with Ruben Carranza. Knowing his background, it matters a lot. And so this is what I would recommend to you. If you're analyzing disappearances, maybe you want to pay for a database out there where you can check people's criminal records and such things, bankruptcies. It's all public information if you look hard enough. So this matters in this disappearance. It certainly raises the possibility, I don't know the probability, the possibility that this is a disappearance that is rooted in foul play, because he's running around probably a lot of bad people. Who knows what can happen? All right, let's now move on to learning point number 3. Learning point number 3 is no reward. Now, many of you have been listening to Unfound for a long time or watched the live shows on Monday nights. You know where I'm going with this. You heard in both articles, first of all, the reward was $1,500, and then it was raised to $3,000. I'm going to say it again. Rewards don't work. Rewards do not solve disappearances. I'm not saying it's never happened. But for practical purposes, it doesn't work. They don't work. Unfortunately, I think this is like is it actually like a Hollywood effect? Maybe it is, in that I think to this day, even in 2025, I think when people think rewards, they automatically think back to the late 1800s and the Wild Wild West, where there was a sheriff and that put something up on a post in some little isolated town with reward. The bad person's photography was just new back then. The bad guy's picture with reward, and the posse would go out and get him. And maybe that worked back then. I really don't know what the stats are, and I don't even probably nobody's ever even done any studies on that. Maybe they have. I don't know. we get the idea because of that, I think here in 2025, that is a constructive way to solve disappearances and catch people. It's not. In fact, over and over what you find, it doesn't matter if the disappearance happens in Pennsylvania, Florida where I live now, Nevada where I used to live, Alaska, Hawaii, doesn't matter. You do this, all you do is you get all of the kooks coming out of the woodwork. The people who claim, see, at least at this point, I think a lot of these people know, there's a lot of people who think they're psychics, but they know what the general attitude is towards psychics. So what they'll do is they'll say that they have a tip, like they actually saw something. Well, they only saw something in their head. They didn't actually see something. Unfortunately, though, police then feel obligated to follow this tip, and it's really not a tip at all. It's just somebody's imagination. So why don't they work, though? Really, well, if people know things, you'd think that rewards would work. And certainly we have come across some disappearances that have been solved where people did know things and didn't come forward, despite there being rewards. Why is this? Well, to put that aside for a moment, we have to realize a lot of these disappearances, nobody really knows anything. It's the cliche, well, someone knows something. No, in disappearances, nobody really has to know anything. In fact, I've covered many disappearances that have been ultimately resolved where the only person who knew anything was the person who went missing. There were no witnesses. Nobody outside of the missing person who knew anything at all. Zero. So when that's the case, rewards, of course, are not going to work. Only the missing person knows why the missing person went missing. That's one of the reasons rewards don't work. Another reason is because a lot of these disappearances, even when they're foul play, there's only one suspect. And you really don't think that person is going to come forward to get the reward, do you? I'm not saying it's never happened. I mean, there are some crazy stories out there of people doing that, but surely not for murder. A murderer, like, for example, being that I just spoke about Zoe Campos and Carlos Rodriguez. Carlos Rodriguez did not turn himself in. They usually don't do that. So that's another reason rewards don't work. A lot of times, there's only one killer, and the killer, there is no amount of money. The Powerball's up to like $1.1 billion now. That would not be enough for somebody to come forward because the person knows, I'm not going to get to spend that money anyway because I'm going to come in, I'm going to reveal information, they're going to figure out it's me, I'm going to go to jail, and I'm not going to be able to collect that money. That's another reason rewards don't work. In addition, as I spoke before, with the kooks coming forward when rewards come out, it only serves, there very well may be somebody out there who knows something, but it gets covered up by all of the people who don't know anything, who are just taking chances by contacting police because they think, well, maybe I'll just get lucky and get to collect that $3,000. So that one possible good tip gets covered up by 1,000 bad tips, and really for the police, there's no way to tell one from the other, the good one from all the bad ones. There is no way to tell that. That's another reason rewards don't work. There's also the perception, another reason that rewards don't work. If people know things, that they'll come forward for money, and we just know that that's not true either. It's just not. No reward is going to overcome culture and perceived fear. We run into this. You can see this, unfortunately, in the cities of the United States where murders happen. People don't want to cooperate with the police. Word goes up, doesn't matter. Even though probably people in this neighborhood saw the shooting, these people know who did it, there's no amount of money that's going to change their mind. There's too much peer pressure. There's too much cultural pressure. There's too much fear of revenge if people others find out that this person went to the police and then collected the reward. Too much fear. Although in the disappearance that I've covered, I don't know how common that is, but I know it exists. And it happens enough that I need to mention it. Rewards don't work. And the only really thing they serve is to maybe put a disappearance or a crime back into the public spotlight. Maybe. But here, you have to remember this. All of you have surely heard of Brian Schaefer. All of you have surely heard of Mara Murray. All of you have surely heard of Jody Huisentruit. Three of the most well-known disappearances of regular people in the United States in the last 30 years. You could even put Jennifer Kesse in here, even though that's not a disappearance that I've featured yet, but the other three I have. All of them have rewards, prominent rewards, big-time money rewards. Everybody who pays attention to the news at least once over the past 30 years have heard all of these names. And surely with Jody's and surely with Jennifer's, those were abductions that probably ended up being murders. I don't know about Brian and Mara, but surely with Jody and Jennifer, all of them are still unsolved. Despite, I don't even know what all of the rewards between all four of those add up to. It is a big number. Nothing has changed the status of those four disappearances, despite them being well known and everybody knowing not only about the disappearance, but about the rewards connected to each. It's done nothing. Remember that. So what is then my analysis for Ruben's disappearance? First, we have to understand there are many unknowns here. We don't know what the condition of the car was. Was there any stuff inside the car that wasn't Ruben's? Was there any signs of violence inside the car? Was it out of gas? Was it running correctly? Did they do fingerprints on it? There's no guarantee of that. Did they do it did they test for forensics like DNA or other things? You should not take that for granted. Many times it's not done. We don't know where he was last seen. We don't know who the last person was who saw him, whether that person can be believed or not. This makes analysis very, very difficult. Was he familiar with this area, this Ridge Road, this Acme? Was he familiar with that area? Did he go there often? Did he know anybody who lived near there? These are all questions that are very important, but we don't know the answers to them. I'm not saying that the answers don't exist. It's just that the answers aren't public. Makes it very difficult for a person in my position then to analyze his disappearance. But however, when we do the podcast that comes out every Friday, of course, we go over stuff like that in detail. Other questions I would have are, was he due to go to jail? Remember, in 2024, he had problems with the law. Was he due to go to jail? Was there a warrant out for his arrest? Had he jumped bail or jumped bond, whatever you call it? That could be a factor here. No public information regarding that. But being that he went missing approximately a year after his last serious crime, that catches my attention. Was there a possibility that maybe some of these crimes he had committed them with other people and maybe he was going to roll over on them? You can see how that would be relevant. This is why I went back. This is why I said before this in part number 2, background check. This is why you have to do that. The big issue, I would say, is that where the car was, given that it was put so far out in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, it surely means that whoever put it there was surely picked up by somebody else. And if this were some sort of Uber or Lyft situation, that would be in the public. I'm pretty sure that would be public by this time. My experience would know that. Even though we don't know a lot of other things, would know that. Either way, more than one person was involved in putting the car there. Even if it's an Uber or Lyft driver who certainly would have had nothing to do with Ruben's disappearance, we have multiple people here out in the middle of nowhere, in contrast to, if his car had been found in downtown Pittsburgh. Then he could get on a public, whoever put it there, whether it's Ruben or somebody else, could have gotten on the public transportation system and gone anywhere. Out in the middle of nowhere, I really don't believe if Ruben put the car there that he walked the whole way back to Greensburg or wherever, or if somebody else put the car there that, oh yeah, I'm going to park the car here and then walk 15 miles home. That did not happen. But I will say, when you start thinking along these lines of, start calculating, well, this had to be more than one person, then that's usually a bad sign. It's usually a bad sign. But another bad sign is, and when I say bad sign, I mean that this is leading me maybe to think more toward foul play and drawing me away from a voluntary disappearance, something like that. Another bad sign is he was last seen on July 29th, but the car wasn't put there to August 4th or 5th. Being that I brought up Zoe Campos before, this is exactly what happened with her. She went missing, and her car then popped up in an apartment complex several days later, and it ended up that Zoe Campos was murdered by Carlos Rodriguez, and it was Carlos Rodriguez who put her car in that apartment complex. It does give the impression that with Ruben that somebody was driving it around or doing something, maybe even trying to pretend, make it look by continuing to drive Ruben's car that Ruben was still alive. Possible. I think that's what Carlos Rodriguez was doing. And Zoe had, if you can believe it, she was just like this 5-foot-tall girl. Her car was a Lincoln Town car, if you can imagine it. And he was just driving it around right there in public for everybody to see. In fact, it was one of Zoe's family members that ended up seeing it and following it. And then that's how the car got parked and Carlos ran off. But it took 5 years to eventually catch him. However, I know this is kind of going the opposite direction from where I've been going in this analysis. The odds are still more than 50% that Ruben is still alive. The reason I say that is I'm going to guess, like I said, that he did have jail time coming up. I don't know if he ever did go to jail for any of these crimes, specifically the one that was committed in 2024. He surely was out on bond or something. Was there a trial, or was there going to be a trial? Was he due to be going to jail? I have to be open to like that. He doesn't seem like the type of person to commit suicide. Certainly, maybe if he had a drug problem, I know that he caught with possession of drugs. That doesn't necessarily mean he had a drug problem, was an addict. But if he was an addict, certainly he could have overdosed, and somebody covered up. He or she covered it up and dumped his car there. But it's really the car that catches my attention. That if something bad did happen to Ruben, that to get away with the crime, these people or person would have put the car somewhere where it couldn't be found so easily. I didn't realize what it said hidden. Doesn't mean anything to me. As I've learned, you can make cars go missing pretty easily. Now, eventually, are they found if there's smart people out there and scuba divers? Yes. But in the very, very short term, you can make a car go missing and it could not be found for years. This wasn't done here. And so this kind of gives the appearance that this car was put there in haste. And people who want to get away, if there was a murder or a death, usually don't make hasty decisions like that. So I have to admit, it's kind of like 55% he's still alive, 45% he's deceased for some reason. That's where I am right now. Like I said, there's so much more information that I don't know, and certainly if I knew it, what was in the car, what else was going on, where was he, who was the last person who says he or she saw Ruben, then those percentages would quickly change. It very well may go to 99% murder or 99% Ruben took off. It's just hard to say right now. But given the information right now, I'm going 55% he's still alive, 45% that he's deceased. And it's just so many unknowns. So there you go. That is the Unfound Now for the disappearance of Ruben Carranza. I remind you, it's only a little over a month old. And I would not be surprised if a few months from now, if it's still unsolved, that more facts are released. And if so, I'll maybe come back to this microphone on an Unfound Live and talk about it. So please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel, and thanks for listening.